It's June, and we are back with episode 10 of The Dark Room, where two blind cinephiles illuminate the sighted. I'm Lee Pugsley.
I'm Alex Howard.
And we are your two legally blind hosts of this podcast for film lovers of all abilities. Today, we wanted to highlight one of the studios that we feel like has done an exceptional job with audio description. And we feel like it's important to highlight the good things that are being done in terms of audio description, as well as sharing our frustrations. But today we wanted to focus on something positive. And Alex, tell us about the studio that we're highlighting.
Yeah, so this is our part one of a 5-part Disney episode. We're not going to be doing all 5 parts in a row. It'll be scattered throughout, but we're doing one part on live action, one part on Disney animation, one part on Pixar, one part on Marvel, and one part on Star Wars. So today we are talking specifically about live action Disney movies because we just had The Little Mermaid come out.
Yeah, so we just wanted to share our thoughts briefly on The Little Mermaid, and then we'll talk about our favorite Disney live action remakes, go into some other live action Disney films that we would put in our favorites categories. But let's get going first with the latest remake, which is Disney's The Little Mermaid. Alex, why don't you share some of your thoughts on your experience with the movie?
So, I think the movie overall was really, really good. I think there were a few little nitpick things that I didn't like. I think Scuttle being in the water in the beginning was a little weird. We will be going into light spoilers because by the time this comes out, the movie will be out for a month. But we're not going to give anything major away. But, yeah, so Scuttle being in the water in the beginning was a little off-putting for me, which is a very small thing. And I think it took me a little bit to get into the new Sebastian. Like, the first rendition of Under the Sea, it was still a little weird. But I think once we got later in the movie, it was great. I loved Halle Bailey was awesome. She's going to be huge, hopefully, if everything keeps going right for her. She's amazing. Her voice is crazy. And I think The Little Mermaid, the new one, did Act 2 and showing the relationship between Ariel and Eric better than the animated one. I really like the whole thing where they're in the little town, and I really like the Kiss the Girl song, how they changed it a little bit to make it more modern. I really like what they did with that. But I think my only complaint really that's not a nitpick is I didn't really like Eric's song. But other than that, I really enjoyed it, and I know hot take, I really like Scuttlebutt. I know that's a very controversial part of it, but what did you think, Lee?
To give some context, The Little Mermaid is my favorite Disney animated movie of all time. So I was very worried about this movie, and I went into it not expecting to like it. That being said, I came out having a lot of fun and enjoying it quite a bit. I don't think it's a perfect film by any means. It's kind of a mixed bag. To kind of play off of some of the things that you were mentioning, Alex, I think that the first 10 to 15 minutes of the movie comes across a little bit bland, and the energy and pacing is just a little slow, and the characters seem a little flat. But once we start getting into it, once we see Ariel and meet her and Flounder, the movie picks up a little bit and slowly gets better from there. By the time it got to part of that world, I was fully invested. And a huge part of that is due to the compelling performance from Halle Bailey. Like you said, Alex, she's going to be a star. I think this movie was a great vehicle for people to know who she is. And she's so talented. She played the character of Ariel so well, giving us the essence of what we love about the animated version of Ariel, but also doing something to make it her own, and even making Ariel's character a little more grounded and mature, which I appreciated. Moving forward, the rest of the underwater sequences were good. They left a little to be desired, but not enough that I hold it against anything. Once we get onto land, though, the added content between Ariel and Eric and building their relationship on a friendship, seeing the ways that they connect with each other and understanding the reasons why they would connect with each other was really delightful, and that was my favorite part of the movie. Like you said, the scenes in the village, Kiss the Girl, all of that was fantastic. And then the last part of the movie, the last like 5 to 10 minutes, it just didn't seem as magical as in the animated movie when Ariel gets transformed into a human and she's running towards Eric. And I wanted to see a little bit more of that magic. And one of the major things about the last part of the movie that I really missed was her blue dress. When she comes out of the water in the animated film, there's like the sparkly blue dress, and it's beautiful, and I don't know why they got rid of that. And then last thing I'll say about the ending is I wanted them to sing a reprise of Part of Your World where the mer people and the humans sing together, kind of like they do in the animated film. I'm willing to accept the ending the way it was, but it definitely left a little bit to be desired. And then in terms of the new songs, the most annoying song to me was Scuttlebutt, actually. I just found it so jarring and out of context with the style of the other musical numbers. And I'm like, why is this song here? Please let it end. It was so cringy to me. And in contrast to you, I really did like Eric's song. I don't think it was completely necessary from an objective point of view, but it's so musical theater and so theatrical that it worked well for me.
Yeah, I think the end climax with Ursula getting, huge, like just like she does in the animated one. I mean, from an eyesight perspective, was very, very dark. I really couldn't see her at all, the Ursula character, when she got big. And I think part of it might have been because I did see it in 3D and I had the tint on my 3D glasses, which even made the beginning part in the underwater when it was darker hard to watch. But other than that, I mean, Melissa McCarthy was awesome as well. I know we haven't even mentioned her yet, but she was a perfect Ursula, I thought.
Melissa McCarthy was fantastic. She really paid homage to Pat Carroll, who did the voice of Ursula in the original animated film, but she also very much found ways to make it her own and add her own comedic flair into the role. I also think that Jonah Hauer-King as Prince Eric did a very good job as well, and I was really glad that they developed the character of Eric more than they do in the animated film. And then to touch on one thing that you were saying about the visual component of the movie, there were quite a few scenes, especially underwater, that were pretty dark, and I definitely missed a lot in those scenes. And then with the Ursula getting big and all of that, it was very hard for me to see much of that too. I do think that the audio description did a good job of describing different things. How did you feel about that?
Yeah, I thought it was good. Do I remember correctly? I feel like they went into detail about the different breeds of sea life that we were seeing.
They did go into detail about the different breeds of sea life. And another thing I appreciated is at first when you see Ariel's sisters, they were describing the different types of tails that they had with the colors and the patterns and everything. And I really appreciated the level of detail that the audio description brought to making the viewing experience more complete for us.
I know you're a theater guy. How did you feel about the description during Under the Sea? Because I know that's a big musical piece in the movie.
I thought they did a great job of describing the sea life and the movement of the sea life in Under the Sea. They'll describe, these fish dance around Ariel, or these fish, these turtles move in a line. And it was descriptive enough that I was able to fill in the gaps and look for those visual cues from what I was being told I needed to look for.
Yeah, one other thing I will say, I know I'm circling back to what you were saying about you would like a reprise of Part of Your World. I really did like the little reprise they did, I think about 3/4 of the way through the movie, when Ariel is on land and she's singing about, she starts singing Part of Your World again, but it's a little bit different lyrics. And I think Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote that part too, as well as Scuttlebutt. But I really liked the little reprise of Part of Your World that they did have.
I liked it as well. I wouldn't say that it was completely necessary, but once again, nothing that I'm going to, use as a strike against it at all.
Yeah, I like that the songs they did add were mostly for Halle Bailey, because she is so talented. Even though she got her voice taken away, I like that they gave her a few songs to sing. For us, like, it's what she's thinking, even though no one else can hear her singing.
Yes, I really liked that aspect of the film, and I thought that the director Rob Marshall did a really good job of depicting the thoughts in her head in a way that we as the audience could understand what was actually going on.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think this is for me, one of the better Disney remakes, probably top two or three for me. But where does this rank for you among other Disney remakes?
Excellent question. So let's talk about it. I will give you my top five Disney remakes, and I'll start with number five, and then we can just kind of bounce the ball back and forth. So number five for me is Pete's Dragon. This is a film directed by David Lowery, who I always find to be an engaging director. I think that he always does unique things and things a little outside of the box of what most directors do. The other thing I liked about Pete's Dragon from the original version was that it was quite a bit different, but the idea of a boy befriending a dragon, that through line was still there. I thought that the visuals in that movie were nice, and there was a certain charm and heartwarming aspect of that film. So that falls into my number five spot for live action Disney remakes. And before I go any further, I just want to say that no live action Disney remake has been perfect, and I don't see them as being completely necessary, but they definitely have given me some level of enjoyment to see how different parts of stories can be reinterpreted. On that note, what's your number five Disney remake, Alex?
To start off, I think as a rule, I mean, none of these movies are better than the original. I think it's going to be very difficult for them to make any of them better than the original. But I think my favorite ones are the ones that kind of add more to the story rather than take things away. I think, some of the ones that didn't work were ones like Mulan and, for me, Jungle Book and things like that were either too different or too much the same thing for the animated one. So I don't know that I have them in any order. I haven't seen Pete's Dragon or as many as you have. The straight to Disney Plus ones I haven't watched yet. But for me, number five, I know it's controversial. It might be The Lion King, just because I love The Lion King so much growing up. And I know the animals it's hard to emote with the animated or realistic looking lions. But I think it's just so beautiful to watch. And I think, that nostalgia really plays into it a little bit for me.
I respect where you're coming from. However, that movie to me would be on the bottom three of worst Disney live action remakes. I think it was just, for me, the photorealism I commend. I think that The Lion King, on a technical level, is an achievement, and there's some beauty and majesty to what they were able to do. I fully applaud that. And the voice performances were fine. I think that Seth Rogen and who played who were Timon and Pumbaa?
Seth Rogen and is it Billy Eichner?
Billy Eichner, yeah. I think that both of them were the saving grace of that movie, but it still came across as just very bland, and I wasn't able to connect with the characters as much. And the thing that drove me the most nuts about it was they sing "Can You Feel the Love Tonight" when it's bright daylight. And I'm like, come on, guys, that's an easy fix.
Yeah. I also think, tied for my number five would also be, it's the 94? 101 Dalmatians? I know
1996, 101 Dalmatians.
It's probably not nearly as good now. I haven't watched it since I was a kid, but as a kid, I really liked that movie. It was kind of like combining 101 Dalmatians and Home Alone almost.
That's such a good way to put it, because I feel like the second half of the movie really becomes like Home Alone, and the first half of the movie is kind of more true to the animated film. I think that's a very underrated Disney remake, because people forget about it since it came out so much before the era of Disney remakes that we have now. I think what really sells that movie for me as well is Glenn Close as Cruella de Vil. She's a force to be reckoned with, and she's such an accomplished actress.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. She is really, really good in that role. And just so everyone knows, I mean, I've only seen 8, and 2 of them we're not counting. We're not counting Maleficent in this list, and we're not counting Cruella in this list, because technically, I mean, they aren't really a remake of Sleeping Beauty, and it's not really a remake of 101 Dalmatians, so.
One of the other things I want to comment on, too, with 101 Dalmatians is they were able to pull that movie off without the animals talking, and it still worked.
Oh, I agree. I think they should try and stick with that. I think, I mean, we'll talk about Cinderella and I guess Mulan didn't make my list, but we'll talk about that as we go into Cinderella. But what's your number 4?
Number 4 on my list is Aladdin. I wasn't expecting much from this movie. I was very turned off by the trailer, but I had a surprising amount of fun when I went into the theater. I thought that Mina Masood and Naomi Scott were great for Aladdin and Jasmine. I think that they both connected well with one another, and they added a certain level of charm to those characters. But what really sold the movie for me was Will Smith. I mean, let's be honest, he can never recapture the brilliance of Robin Williams' animated performance as Genie. And I'm glad he didn't try to do that. He did his own thing with it, and it worked remarkably well.
I agree. That's actually Aladdin's probably my number 4 as well. I think going into it, the genie was the thing I was most hesitant about, and then coming out of it, it was the best part of the movie. The biggest pleasant surprise of the movie.
My main criticisms for the movie, and I'm curious to see what you think, is sometimes the world of Agrabah looked a little smaller than how grand I think it could actually be. It just felt very self-contained, and I'm like, come on, show us more. And then the other criticism I had was Jafar didn't seem very menacing to me. He seemed like the kind of guy that I could hang out with and grab beers with and be like, yo, be my homeboy.
Yeah, wasn't there a thing where people were having crushes on the guy who played Jafar?
Yeah, that was definitely a real thing.
So yeah, I mean, that was both of our number 4. I think, yeah, Aladdin was definitely one of the stronger ones that they've done, because they did do things differently, but they also, paid homage to the original at the same time. But what was your number 3?
Number 3 is The Little Mermaid, and we don't need to touch on that too much. It was a tough call, though, between Aladdin and The Little Mermaid for which movie was the better live-action remake. I think what it comes down to for me is that The Little Mermaid just seemed a bit more tightly directed than Aladdin, and that's why it has the slight edge. Also, it stuck to the bones of the source material really well, gave us some of those iconic moments that we were hoping for from the animated film, and just was slightly more satisfying than Aladdin. Even though I might argue that Aladdin might have a few more elements of fun than The Little Mermaid, I think The Little Mermaid overall is slightly stronger in the story.
Yeah, I could see that, yeah. I think my number 3 is Beauty and the Beast. People criticize Emma Watson singing, but I thought she was a really good Belle, acting-wise.
I validate that opinion wholeheartedly, but I felt quite the opposite. I felt like Beauty and the Beast, while it had some very good production design, it just seemed bland to me, with the exception of Luke Evans as Gaston, which was the saving grace for that movie. I also was a big fan of Dan Stevens as the Beast. I think that he did a pretty good job, and they have this song Forevermore that he sings after he lets Belle go that I really appreciated. What I didn't appreciate, though, is Emma Watson as Belle. I like Emma Watson in general as an actress, but for the role of Belle, she just didn't do it for me. It was probably a combination of her singing and her voice being auto-tuned, as well as I wanted more of a sense of adventure, a spontaneity and free-spirited Belle than what I got. I feel like she was a little more subdued and muted, and I realized that may have been a directorial choice or an acting choice. And once again, that takes away nothing from her talent just for this role. I wanted something different than what I got.
Yeah, I can respect that. And I mean, I'm not a musical theater guy, so I didn't have a big problem with her singing, but I can see why you did. So, Lee, what is your number two?
My number two, and I know that we're going to have differing opinions on this one too, which is great because that's what makes this podcast fun, is that we don't always agree on everything, and that's totally cool. But my number two is The Jungle Book. I thought that Jon Favreau did a really good job of expanding the material from the animated film, and he actually gave the animals a level of expression in their faces and their eyes so that we felt like we had a connection with them. Scarlett Johansson, Bill Murray, and I'm not thinking of the other names right now, but all of them I thought did a stellar job, and I thought that the world looked colorful, the score was great, they used a lot of the songs from the animated film, and they paid homage to it enough that we felt like we were getting the spirit of the animated Jungle Book, while also giving us new perspectives and new things to refresh the story. Now, I'm curious to hear your thoughts because I know that you weren't as big of a fan of this movie.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't really. I feel like for me, it was too different from the original. Like, I know the monkey.
King Louis?
Thank you. King Louis was like a huge monkey in this one. I know that's a kind of a nitpick, but it seemed like it was a big plot point. I don't know. I didn't feel the magic in this one as much as in the animated one growing up. I don't know. I felt like I think the strengths of Little Mermaid were the parts where they differed from the original. And I think with Jungle Book, for me, the parts that differed was most of the movie, and it was the weaker parts.
That's fair. I can understand where you're coming from. And, but yeah, what's your number two?
My number two is Cinderella. And like I said, all of these are, I mean, it could be a toss-up between my number two and number one, and really all of them. But I just watched Cinderella before recording this with you, and I thought it was surprisingly good. Like, I'm not a big Cinderella guy. You know, I watched the animated movie growing up a few times, but it wasn't one of my go-tos. And I felt like the live action made me a lot more interested in the story than I thought I would be. I was a lot more invested in it than I thought. And I wanted to ask you, I know we talked on the phone about this a little bit, but I thought it was interesting that Cinderella was able to not have any songs in it and not have any talking animals in it, just like another Disney remake, Mulan, although Mulan did not work, whereas Cinderella worked very well. And I think it's interesting that, you know, the mice don't talk, none of that. Bippity Boppity Boo is not in it, yet it's still a really good, solid Disney remake.
That's a great point, and spoiler alert, Cinderella is actually my number one favorite Disney live action remake. I think it is one of the only films, if not the only remake, that surpasses the original animated film. Could be a hot take for some people. But I think the reason that the animals not talking in Cinderella works where it didn't in Mulan is because Mulan did something so vastly different with the story that they didn't really follow the beats of the animated film as much as Cinderella follows the beats of the source material. With Mulan, they focus more on the lore of Mulan. And I think one of the things that was really lost in translation was Mulan using her wit and her skill and her inner strength to become confident in the fact that she could go to war disguised as a man and that she could hold her own. And that we see her growth and we see her arc. Whereas in the new Mulan, she starts off as just like kind of like the superhero, or this like she has these like superpowers with the chi and everything that she's always had. And it's almost kind of like Rey in Star Wars, or it could almost be considered a superhero movie in some ways. Going back to Cinderella, though, Cinderella had all of the beats of the animated film, including the animals, but it also expanded on the material, giving more depth and dimension to the relationship between Cinderella and the prince, and even giving the prince more to do. And I think that Lily James and Richard Madden did a very good job of creating chemistry with one another. And you do get a little bit more from Cate Blanchett's stepmother in the live action remake. But once again, Cinderella works because they kept the beats of the original animated film and stayed faithful to it and used that as the vehicle to expand. Where Mulan, they got rid of Mushu, they got rid of the music, they got rid of so many things about it, and they weren't anchored in the animated film to expand.
Yeah, I think for Mulan is the only one on my list that I've seen that didn't make it. And I think it's because Mushu was my favorite part of the animated one, and he wasn't in the live action at all, which really kind of, threw off the whole tone. It wasn't really there weren't really any jokes. It was a very serious movie.
Yeah, it's kind of like, let's do Mulan, but take all of the fun and energy out of it, which I feel like is what they did. And then I know that you had mentioned this previously when we had talked that the climax is at a construction site, and I was like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Cinderella, when I first watched it, I was like, why does this click for me so well? But it does. It works very, very well. Even, as a 30-year-old guy, I wouldn't think I would be very interested in a Cinderella movie, but I was very engaged in it. It was very good. And I think, for me, to touch on other ones that don't have music, I think Cruella would have been my number 5 if we were counting that as a remake. I really, really enjoyed Cruella a lot. But I know it's not really the 101 Dalmatian story, although hopefully we'll get a sequel and they'll go into that kind of thing. But you said Cinderella was your number 1?
Yeah, and in addition to everything that I've said, from a filmmaking point of view, whether or not it was Cinderella or any other film, I think that the production design in Cinderella is beautiful. The costumes are gorgeous. The score by Patrick Doyle is really wonderful. I think it's a very well-paced movie, and it has movement. It lifts off the page, and Kenneth Branagh did a great job of elevating that material, and it feels magical in a lot of ways. And I would argue that this might be one of Kenneth Branagh's best movies, if not his best movie. That could be a hot take for some people as well, but I hold to it. So if you don't have any more thoughts on Cinderella, what is your number 1?
Well, I'm realizing now, I guess my number 1 is Little Mermaid. It's funny, there were a lot of parts of Little Mermaid. I thought, like I said, Act 2 of Little Mermaid was stronger than Act 2 of the animated one. But in a lot of cases, I haven't seen the animated movies for these since childhood. So, I'm like, as I'm watching it, I'm remembering, oh, that's right, that did happen in the original. So, I'm not as passionate about the Disney remakes as, probably even you or a lot of other people. But it's funny because, I'm like, oh, this one's coming down the pipeline. I know Snow White's coming next year. But as we get a couple weeks out, then I'll get really excited for it, and then I'll go, and that'll be my time where I'm stoked for it. But I'm not there are aspects of Disney I love, but I think this isn't one that I'm super passionate about. Yes, I'm realizing Little Mermaid is my number 1. I think, yeah, I really liked Act 2 a lot. None of these movies are like my favorite movies ever, but I do think there are some that you can say weren't necessary. And all of these, no movie has ever been necessary. But there are certain ones that are have more of a place in. I get a lot of people think Disney's just mining for money, but it's for the new generation. I think the Little Mermaid with the Black Ariel has a big cultural significance for a lot of children growing up right now.
100%. And one of the things that I'll say that is probably nice for you is I don't feel like you're as attached to the original animated films as I am or other hardcore Disney fans.
Exactly, that's what I was trying to say.
So what it gives you, though, is when you go into these movies, you're able to kind of just take them more at face value than, someone like me is able to, where I'm just picking apart every little detail. Like, why did they make that choice? Why did they deliver that line that way? Why did they visually represent it this way? And it's really hard for me to shut off my critical brain when I'm watching a Disney live action remake. Whereas for you, you're able to probably get a level of enjoyment from it that I don't get because I'm just analyzing it the whole time.
Yeah. But yeah, and I think another reason we are doing this episode is obviously all of the movies we're talking about, if they are on Disney Plus, they have audio description. We want to reward Disney for literally audio describing their whole library, pretty much. Almost everything on there is described. So every movie that we have talked about, and for the rest of the episode, these nostalgic movies that we're going to be talking about, even though some of them are pretty deep cuts, I think, all of them are on, if they are on Disney Plus, they have audio description.
One of the things that we both really appreciate about Disney and any other studio that's willing to do this as well is when they go back and they audio describe their back catalog of movies that initially never had audio description. I mean, on Disney Plus, they even go back and, audio describe Mickey Mouse shorts. They audio describe their trailers. They really do a fantastic job of making things accessible for their viewers.
One of the big things for me is the trailers are awesome. Like if you go on Disney Plus right now, they have the Haunted Mansion movie that's coming out, trailer described, Indiana Jones, the Secret Invasion, the new Marvel show. They do a really good job of making things as accessible as possible. I think Disney and Apple are some of the leading, most accessible companies right now. So we are going to move into our nostalgia phase of the episode. So these are Disney live action movies that we loved growing up, and we have a good amount of nostalgia for. So we are gonna play a little game real quick. We are gonna try and get each other to guess the movie just based on one word. So do you want me to go first, Lee?
Yeah, give me one of your nostalgia movies. And are these ranked by any particular order?
No, these aren't ranked. I really like all of these movies.
Okay, nice.
So my first one is Scientist.
Initially, I would say Flubber.
That's one of mine later on the list for sure. Flubber, I know objectively it's not that great of a movie, but I really liked it growing up. It was fun. But the one I'm talking about, can you think of another one? There were 2 sequels.
I want to say Night at the Museum.
I don't think that was Disney. It was Fox, actually.
Oh, okay. I'm failing here. Maybe give me one more clue.
Baseball.
Baseball.
That was
scientist.
A deep cut.
Baseball scientist. I'm drowning here. I fail this one.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Oh.
I love that movie so much. Probably more than I should.
No, that's a great movie, and the sequel was great too.
See, I didn't see the sequel till 2020, which it was fun. But the original. Oh, you know what? Honey, I Shrunk Ourselves. I did watch as a kid, but I didn't watch Honey, I Blew Up the Kid until 2020.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So I will give you one. Also, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is one of my favorite nostalgia movies as well. Word is segregation.
Oh, man. For a Disney movie? I have no idea. Wow. That's a very strong word for a Disney movie.
Okay, I'll give you another clue. Coach.
Oh, is it Remember the Titans?
Absolutely. I love that movie.
Yeah, it's funny. I've never seen that movie.
You are missing out, and you need to get on that, right now.
I know. Ryan Gosling's, my favorite actor, and I know it's, his first movie.
And Denzel Washington, too, is great in that movie.
Yeah, there's a little part of the live action thing I'm missing. I've never seen that. I've never seen the Mighty Ducks movies either. So my next one, the clue is basketball.
Ooh, basketball. Glory Road?
Oh, man. No. What about Dog? Air Bud. Dude, I love this movie so much. It's so crazy. This is another one of those boy meets creature and bonds with creature and then has to let creature go. Ugh, I love that plot line growing up.
Yeah, Air Bud is great. So much fun, and the dog is so cute too.
Yeah. And then they really ran that into the ground with all of the sequels, but it's fine.
Yeah, they should really needed to quit while they were ahead. Okay, next one for me is Olympics.
Is Cool Runnings a Disney movie?
Bam.
Wow.
You
See, I've
got
never
it.
seen that one either.
I was going to say Jamaica at first, but that would be too obvious.
Yeah, I've never seen Cool Runnings either. That's crazy.
Cool Runnings is really fun. It's based on a true story. Obviously, they took liberties, but it has such fun humor and is very inspirational, as most of these like Disney movies we're talking about now are.
Did it win any Oscars or was it nominated?
It was not nominated. And it's not that type of movie. It's just a really like fun movie with an interesting story.
Okay. So then another dog movie, Lost.
The only things I think of are like A Dog's Journey or A Dog's Purpose or A Dog's Way Home. None of those were Disney, so I know it's not that. Homeward Bound.
Homeward
Incredible
Bound.
Journey.
So I actually, hot take, I grew up with Lost in New York. Is that the sequel?
Lost in San Francisco.
Lost in San Francisco, thank you. Yeah, I grew up with Lost in San Francisco. I didn't see the original till 2020 also. But just the whole, it's the same thing. I love the talking dogs. And, back then they didn't make the mouths move, so it was a little bit better.
Homeward Bound is on my nostalgia list as well. And I do have to say that movie holds up pretty well. And I didn't watch Lost in San Francisco till probably like 2014 or 2015, just because I thought it was going to be pretty lame. But that's actually a pretty credible sequel.
Yeah, that one's really fun. I mean, obviously to me, that's my original one. But I just think the dynamic between the dogs and the cat are really great.
Have you seen the first movie before?
I have, yeah.
Okay. Did you like that one too?
I did, except it didn't hit me as hard. At the end he falls in the pit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh my God, is he going to live? And I'm like, well, I grew up with the sequel, so I know
Yeah,
everything's
yeah.
going to be fine. It didn't affect me, I think, as much as a lot of people when they first saw it.
I totally get that. And based on the order that you watched them in, obviously that would track. Okay, next clue for you. Twins.
Oh, I have this movie on my list, The Parent Trap.
Bam, The Parent Trap.
The one with Lindsay Lohan, right?
It's funny because I think that both movies are great companion pieces. There's the 1961 version with Haley Mills, who was like the Disney golden child of the 50s and 60s era. And then the Lindsay Lohan one is an excellent remake. Both of them have a very special place in my heart, and I can't choose between either one of them. So just The Parent Trap, both versions make my cut.
I've only seen the remake with Lindsay Lohan, but I do really, really enjoy it. And I think I watched it not too long ago either. It holds up still. I mean, once again, you have that. There are parts of it that are a little Home Alone where they're setting the traps and stuff, but it still works.
Yeah, and she's great in that movie too.
Oh yeah, she was one of, like Freaky Friday, and she was great for a while. Mean Girls, obviously Mean Girls, but when I hear Lindsay Lohan, I think of Parent Trap first.
I do as well. Okay, hit me with another one.
Shovel.
Holes.
Yep, dude.
Love that movie so much.
That is nostalgia central, and I don't think it's weird because that's one that not many people talk about now, which is a little understandable. But I mean, I could see them doing even a remake of that at some point down the line because the book was a really big deal when I was growing up as well.
Yeah, I haven't read the book, but I've always wanted to read the book.
Yeah, the book's good. I also read the sequel, Small Steps, but it's about, I think Armpit is the one that's about.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, like, I love Holes. I love that Rick Fox is in it too at the end because I was a big Lakers fan growing up. So yeah, that movie's awesome.
Love it. Okay, next one. Author.
It's not. It's not the Page Master, right? That wasn't Disney, was it?
That was not Disney. I believe that was. I want to say it was Fox, but don't quote me on that.
That'd be interesting to see if they have on Disney Plus now. Can you give me another one?
Yes. Rights.
Is it the one with Hilary Swank? Where she's the teacher?
Nah. No. Is that Freedom Riders?
It's Freedom Riders.
I like that movie. Okay, let me think of another one. Children's book.
I have no idea.
Children's book.
Oh my gosh, why can't I? I don't know.
I'll give you one more clue. Nanny.
Wow, I really no clue. What is it?
Okay, it's Saving Mr. Banks.
Oh, okay. No wonder. Yeah, I haven't seen that, but I should. I should know that one because it's the writer of
Mary
Poppins, right?
And it's about him acquiring the rights to the film. Walt Disney acquiring the rights to the
Okay.
film.
That one came out what, 2012, something like that?
Honestly, it was 2014.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
might be 2013,
Okay.
but somewhere around 2013 or 2014.
Okay. So these next two for me are like top tier favorites all time Disney live action. Booty.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Pirates of the Caribbean. The first one, that one got nominated for Oscars. I don't know that you can. It's really hard to top that for Disney live action, with the Disney logo at least. You know what I mean?
I mean, Jack Sparrow is such a good character, too.
Yeah.
One of the most iconic Disney characters for live action movies. It's unbeatable. Okay, next one for me, fashion.
Oh man, see,
You'll know this.
is it Princess Diaries? No.
Next clue, villain.
Oh, Cruella.
Yes. That
Nice.
is one of my all-time favorite Disney live action movies.
I would agree. I really like that one as well. That probably would have been number one for me if we were, somewhere around there. In that ranking, it would have made it if we were counting that one.
I feel you.
Emma Stone did a really good job with that. Okay. Declaration.
National Treasure.
Yeah. As ridiculous as a premise as that movie has, I love it way too much. It's just so much fun.
And Nicolas Cage is great in that movie, too.
Yeah.
Okay, next one for me, Ice.
Oh, man, here's a throwback. It's not Snow Dogs, is it?
It's not. I'll give you one more clue. Sports.
Is it Mighty Ducks?
It is Mighty Ducks. My next clue is going to be hockey.
Okay.
I know you said you haven't seen it, but that's one of my favorite childhood movies. Emilio Estevez is great in it. The first one and the second one are good. The third one leaves quite a bit to be desired.
Okay. Yeah, I need to see those as well. So my last one, I think, Loincloth.
Loincloth. Oh, George of the Jungle?
George of the Jungle.
Oh, I love that movie too.
Oh, man. It's just, they really, revisiting it a few years ago, I was like, man, they really objectified Brendan Fraser in that movie. Like,
They really did.
Shines his pecs like, oh man, he's wet a lot of the movie. It's really funny.
My favorite part of that movie is where he's like, Java, 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 Java.
Is that talking to the elephant?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a great one too. Yeah. All of these they just bring back that emotion, of like being a kid, and it's awesome.
Okay, last one for me then. Car.
I want to say The Kid, but it's not, is it?
It is not The Kid. Let me give you another one. Alive?
Oh, is it Herbie?
It is. It's the Love Bug, but the 1960s Love Bug, not the Herbie Reloaded with Lindsay Lohan. But I grew up, so I guess I'll just do a quick shout out to the 1950s and 1960s live action Disney movies, which go under the radar nowadays. There's so many good movies in there. I don't have time to get into all of them, but some of the movies that really stuck out to me as a kid were Pollyanna, The Three Lives of Thomasina, That Darn Cat, The Absent-Minded Professor, The Apple Dumpling Gang, Swiss Family Robinson, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and there's so many more. But for all of you that want to learn more about film history of Disney, check out the 50s and 60s live action films. They're wonderful.
I haven't seen any of those. How sad is that?
I understand why you haven't seen those, so maybe you should make a goal to watch like a few of them this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. My sweet spot for live action is like I think Honey I Shrunk the Kids was like 89. So like 89 to 2005 is my like sweet spot. But yeah, I do need to go back, and especially 20,000 Leagues is a classic. Mary Poppins, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, once again, we love Disney, but we love how accessible Disney is. So we wanted to reward them for being so accessible, making so much audio description, going through their back catalog. There's so many movies from other studios that we would love to watch with AD for the first time, like we talked about on our sin list, but they don't have it. So if every studio did this on their streaming service, we would have access to so many movies. So thank you to Disney. This was part 1. We don't know when part 2 will be, but probably whenever it's relevant again, with the big Disney release.
Exactly. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, we'll be bringing you some more fun content. And if you have any questions or comments, or you want to share your favorite Disney live action remakes, you want to send us your ranking list, or you want to send us some of your favorite Disney nostalgia picks, please go ahead and do so. You can email us at darkroomfilmcast@gmail.com. Once again, that's darkroomfilmcast@gmail.com. And Alex, this has been super fun. I love talking about Disney.
Yeah, I think this was a great episode too because, not only did we get to touch on accessibility, but we got to nerd out about movies, which is what we like to do. And please follow us on Instagram. Also, you can message us there as well, at Darkroom Filmcast.
And happy 100 years anniversary to you, Disney. Let's keep the magic alive.
Yeah, and shout out to Matt Lauterbach and All Senses Go for doing the transcriptions.
Absolutely. Thank you for making accessibility even more accessible. All right, we'll see you guys next time.
All right, take care.
Bye.